My 16-year-old grandson ran the calculator twice because he thought he had made a mistake. Then Jack turned the notebook toward me and said, "Grandpa, this man charged you almost $9,000 to fix things you fixed yourself." The house went quiet. For the first time in 3 weeks, nobody was talking. That was new. Jack sat at my kitchen table with one knee bouncing under Carol's old oak chair, a yellow legal pad in front of him, and a stack of invoices spread out like evidence nobody had meant to leave behind. Bonnie was standing on her back legs against his shin, trying to inspect the paper. Lucy had taken her place under the table near Charlie's shoes because Charlie was 14 and had already learned the sacred household rule: small dogs forgive faster when a boy drops chicken. Jack looked at me again, not the way young people look at old people when they think we have missed a button on a phone. This was different. This was the look a boy gets when the world has just shown him something ugly, and he is deciding whether the grown-ups already knew. For 3 weeks, quiet had been the one thing my house no longer had. My son Brian had moved in after the divorce with 2 boys, 7 plastic tubs, 4 laundry baskets, 1 cracked television, and the particular silence a man carries when he has lost a home and does not yet know what kind of father he is allowed to be in the next one. He stood at the counter now in a faded Astros shirt, one hand around a coffee mug he had not drunk from. "9,000, he said. His voice had anger in it. Not at me, that was the mercy, but shame and anger are cousins. If you let them sit too close, they start wearing each other's clothes." I looked down at the invoices. Hearthguard Home Protection, Annual Senior Safety Plan, Priority Service, Comfort Inspection, Emergency Labor Adjustment, Parts Replacement. The words were clean. That is how people get away with dirty work. They learn clean words first. "It was not all at once," I said. Brian stared at me. "Dad." I heard what he did not say. "How did you let this happen?" I could have told him the truth right then. That grief does not always knock a man flat. Sometimes it just loosens one bolt at a time until a thing that used to hold starts rattling in the wall. Instead, I picked up the top invoice and smoothed it with my thumb. "Bonnie," I said, "get down from the evidence." She did not. Carol would have said. Bonnie respected the law, but questioned procedure. That thought came through me so quickly I almost smiled. Then I saw the line item Jack had circled: compressor relay module. New replacement, $489. The relay in my garage freezer had not been replaced by Hearthguard. I had replaced it myself, on a rainy Thursday in March, with Charlie holding the flashlight. That was when the house started telling the truth. 3 weeks earlier, Brian had backed into my driveway at dusk. He turned the engine off and sat there for a moment before opening the door. Jack got out first, headphones around his neck, face set hard in the way boys set their faces when they do not want anyone to know they have been crying. Charlie climbed out slower, carrying a shoebox full of baseball cards and one small lamp with no shade. I stood on the porch with Bonnie and Lucy under my feet. There are moments when a father should know what to say. I have found in 82 years that those are usually the moments when language leaves the room. Brian looked older than 46. Divorce had taken the shape out of his shoulders. He held a duffel bag in one hand and the boys' school forms in the other, as if paperwork could make a man less broken, just for a little while, he said. "Of course," I told him. He nodded too fast. "I mean, I am going to get us sorted. I have a couple interviews. The lease situation got ugly, and the boys start school in a few weeks, and I just..." "Brian." He stopped. Bonnie barked once. Not unfriendly. More like she was calling the meeting to order. "Bring the boxes in," I said. "Chicken and rice is on the stove." Charlie looked at the dogs. "Is the chicken for us or them?" "Depends how polite you are." That was the first time he smiled. It was small, but I took it. Old men learn to take small things seriously. A smile, a returned phone call, a porch light left on, the first green bud on a plant you thought the freeze had killed. The house changed that night. It had been a careful house for 3 years. I do not mean clean, though it was clean enough. I mean careful. I put my mug in the same place, folded one towel, cooked for 1 man and 2 dogs. Passed Carol's photograph in the hallway and touched the frame when the day had been harder than I cared to admit. After Brian and the boys came, the house became crowded with living. Shoes by the back door, a phone charger plugged into the outlet Carol always said was loose, cereal boxes open on top because nobody under 40 seems to believe cardboard has a purpose after purchase, the washer running at strange hours, Jack eating standing up, Charlie asking where the screwdrivers were and then putting them back wrong, but at least putting them back. Brian apologized for everything, the towels, the boys, the truck in the driveway, the noise. Finally I said, "Son, if you apologize for breathing, I'm going to start charging rent by the syllable." He laughed, then looked guilty for laughing. That was the thing about Brian in those weeks. He was not a bad man. He was a wounded one. There is a difference, and a family gets itself into trouble when it forgets. He loved his boys. He made their lunches. He checked their school emails. He stood in the hallway at night after they shut their doors, not knocking, just listening the way fathers listen when they are afraid they have already failed. I knew that posture. Every father does, if he's honest. The boys found their places before Brian did. Jack took the kitchen table after dinner. He said it was because the Wi-Fi was better there, but I saw how he listened when Brian and I talked. Children of divorce hear the tone beneath the words. They learn which footsteps are ordinary and which ones mean the night is about to bend. Charlie followed me into the garage on the 4th day. "Can I watch?" he asked. I was changing the pull cord on an old mower I did not need but could not bring myself to throw away. "You can do better than watch," I said. "Hold this spring and do not let it introduce itself to your face." He blinked. "Are you serious?" "More serious than the spring is." He held it like it was alive. By the end of the hour he knew what a recoil starter did, why tension mattered, and why a man should never put a screw into a coffee can unless he planned to spend his retirement sorting coffee cans. Lucy adopted him that afternoon. Not officially. There was no ceremony. She simply climbed onto his lap while he sat on the garage step and looked at his phone without seeing it. Charlie put one hand on her back. "She does this with everybody?" "No," I said. He looked down at her and his face shifted. That dog had found the crack in him. Carol used to say Lucy had a gift for finding the part of a person that had stopped asking for comfort. Bonnie's gift was different. Bonnie inspected character. She liked order, punctual meals, and men who did not move too quickly toward closed doors. That is why I should have listened the morning Graham Voss arrived. He knocked at 10 minutes after 9, wearing a navy polo with Hearthguard stitched over the pocket and the kind of smile men practice in rearview mirrors before selling peace of mind to widows. Bonnie stood in the hallway and growled, not loudly, worse, quietly. Graham bent down and offered the back of his hand. "Well, hello there, little lady. You must be Bonnie." I did not remember telling him her name. Maybe I had. Old customers reveal details. Friendly people collect them. Sometimes both are true. "Scheduled tune-up," he said, lifting a tablet. "Water heater, HVAC, check. Garage freezer inspection, basic electrical safety. You know the drill, Mr. Mercer." I did know the drill. That was part of the problem. Hearthguard had started coming the year after Carol died. A postcard first, then a phone call, senior home protection, no surprise repair bills, priority scheduling, friendly local technicians. Carol had handled most subscriptions while she was sick, because she trusted herself to read small print more than she trusted me not to throw it away with the grocery ads. After she died, I signed the renewal because the man on the phone said Carol had wanted the house kept safe. That phrase did more work than it deserved. At first, the visits felt harmless. A young technician changed a filter. Another checked a drain line. Once Graham himself came and told me Carol's roses looked strong for late summer. I should have disliked him right then. Instead, I let the compliment stand in the yard between us. Loneliness makes a man generous with people who remember the dead. Graham stepped into the hallway that morning and looked past me. "Full house now," he said. Brian came out of the kitchen. My son and grandsons are staying a while, I said. Wonderful, Graham said. Best thing for a man, family close by. He said it warmly, but his eyes moved over the boxes still stacked near the dining room wall, the boys' shoes, the school folders, the cracked television leaning against the bookcase. Some men look at a room and see people. Some see leverage. Charlie came down the hallway with Lucy in his arms. Graham's smile sharpened. You helping your granddad keep the place running? Charlie shrugged. Some. Good. He has been one of our favorite clients. We try to take extra care with seniors living alone. Brian stiffened. I heard it in the way his coffee mug touched the counter. I should have ended the visit there. But pride is a strange machine. It jams most often when someone tries to help you. Let him work, I said. Graham went through the house with practiced ease. He opened panels, took pictures, tapped the water heater with 2 fingers, like a doctor pretending metal had a pulse. Charlie followed at a distance. Jack pretended not to care from the kitchen table. In the garage, Graham knelt beside the freezer. This relay is showing age, he said. Charlie looked at me. I said nothing. Graham pulled a small plastic module from his tool bag. It was scuffed at the corners. We can swap it today under priority service. Parts cost applies. Naturally. That relay was replaced, Charlie said. Graham turned. Sometimes these older units fail in clusters. Charlie looked at the freezer, then at me. There was a question on his face. I shook my head once. Not here. The first rule of inspection is simple. Do not argue with a noise. Find where it comes from. Graham left an invoice on the kitchen counter and told me he had kept the numbers friendly. When the door shut, Brian picked up the paper. Dad, what is this? A bill. For a relay? Apparently. Did he replace it? No. Then why does it say he did? Jack looked up from the table, and that was how the invoices came out. Not dramatically. No secret drawer. No thunderstorm. Just Brian opening the utility drawer for tape and finding a folded Hearthguard bill behind the batteries. Then another. Then a rubber-banded stack in the file basket under the phone book I kept, though nobody had used a phone book since the second Bush administration. Jack started sorting them by date because Jack, it turned out, had a mind that disliked disorder when the disorder belonged to someone else. Charlie carried parts from the garage to the table. The old relay, a pump gasket, 2 filters, a pressure switch I had changed myself and marked with a silver paint pen because men who grew up around machinery do not trust memory when vibration is involved. Brian got angrier with every page. Why didn't you tell me? I folded my hands. You had enough. That was true. It was also not the whole truth. Brian heard the rest anyway. Dad. I looked toward Carol's photograph on the hallway wall. She was standing in the garden in that picture, one hand shading her eyes, smiling at me because I had told her not to move and then taken too long with the camera. After your mother died, I said, the house got very quiet. No one moved. Graham came every few months. He remembered her roses. He asked about the dogs. He called before he came. Sometimes the work was unnecessary. Sometimes the charges were foolish. I knew enough to know that. Jack's knee stopped bouncing. Then why pay? It was not rude. It was worse than rude. It was honest. Because some days, I said, it was easier to fix the thing myself afterward than admit I had let a stranger sell me company. Brian looked away. That is the thing about shame. It recognizes itself across the table. He had moved into my house because life had pulled the floor from under him. I had kept paying a man who overcharged me because grief had left a chair empty. We were not the same, but we were nearer than either of us wanted. Lucy put her chin on Charlie's shoe. Bonnie finally got down from Jack's leg and sat beside the invoices like she had been retained as counsel. Grandma knew? Charlie asked. I started to say no, then stopped. Carol knew a great many things before I did. That was one of the vows I had never said out loud, but lived under happily for 51 years. I went to the pantry and took down the blue house binder. Carol had built it during the first year in this house. Mortgage papers, roof warranty, appliance manuals, paint colors, breaker map, vet records, neighbor phone numbers. The binder was thick enough to stop a door and organized well enough to make an attorney feel underdressed. Charlie leaned over it like a treasure map. "You have a map of the breaker box? Your grandmother did not believe electricity should be mysterious." Inside the front cover, Carol had written, "If Mike says he knows where it is, check here first." Brian laughed before he could stop himself. This time he did not look guilty. We turned pages: furnace, roof, plumbing, garage, freezer. Then, tucked behind the HVAC service log, a yellow sticky note had been covered with clear tape. So long the edges had gone cloudy. Carol's handwriting was smaller than I remembered. "If Hearthguard is still coming after I'm gone, ask why the serial numbers never match." For a moment I could not breathe right, not because the clue was clever, because she had written, "after I'm gone." Carol had done that sometimes near the end, put the future in ordinary sentences because she knew I could only carry so much grief at one time. Brian touched the edge of the page. "Mom knew? She suspected. And she left you this?" I nodded. Jack leaned closer. "What serial numbers?" That was when the room changed. Not because we had proof yet, because the boys had a job. A young man in pain is a dangerous thing when he has nowhere useful to put his hands. Give him something honest to measure, and sometimes you can keep the bitterness from setting. I took out a pencil. "Lesson 1, I said. When someone wants you confused, make a table." Jack looked at the yellow pad. "Like columns?" "Exactly like columns." Charlie sat up. "What do I do?" "You and I are going to look at labels." "What labels?" "The ones Graham hoped nobody old would crawl far enough to read." We started in the garage. I showed Charlie how to photograph a serial plate without glare, not straight on if the metal was scratched, a little angle, flash off unless you needed it, include a second shot from farther back so nobody could claim the close-up came from somewhere else. "Evidence is not just what you saw," I told him. "It is what someone else can verify when you are not in the room." He nodded seriously. 14-year-old boys do not always listen when you talk about character. But call it evidence, and put a flashlight in their hand, and the sermon gets better attendance. Jack built the spreadsheet. He did it on my laptop after muttering something about my updates being prehistoric. "This thing is fighting for its life," he said. "So am I. Be respectful." He almost smiled. Brian worked the phone. That surprised me. For 3 weeks he had been moving through the house like a man afraid to take up room. But once there was something to do, his voice steadied. He called Hearthguard and asked for account history. They transferred him 4 times. He wrote down every name. That, too, was useful. By supper we had 7 invoices matched to parts that had not been installed by Hearthguard. 3 parts showed manufacture dates after the invoice claiming they were installed. 2 new parts had wear marks that matched pieces I had kept in a coffee can. 1 capacitor, listed for the air conditioner, did not fit my unit at all. Jack stared at the columns. "This is fraud." "It is a pattern," I said. "Same thing." "Not yet. Pattern is what you build before you accuse a man who knows more expensive words than you do." The next morning, Bonnie found the second thread. She refused to pass the mailbox. Bonnie had rules about mail. She believed envelopes were harmless, postal workers were negotiable, and squirrels were organized crime. But that morning she planted all 7 pounds of herself on the sidewalk and stared at Hazel Whitaker's house. Hazel was on her porch holding a Hearthguard envelope. I walked over with both dogs. Lucy went straight to Hazel's ankle and leaned against her. "You too?" Hazel said. I did not like the sound of that. Hazel had been billed for a water heater expansion tank she did not have. Dennis Pritchard across the street had paid for emergency shut-off valve remediation, though his nephew had installed the valve the year before. Mrs. Alvarez had a receipt for a garage door sensor replacement. She did not own a garage. Older neighborhoods have networks no company ever maps. We know who needs the trash cans brought up. We know whose porch light should come on by 6. We know which dog belongs to which bark. By noon, that network had become an investigation. Jack thought it was amazing. You just called 3 people and got all that? Young people invented group chats, I said. Old people invented knowing who answers before lunch. He wrote that down in the margin. I pretended not to see. Graham called at 4:20. His voice had lost some velvet. Mr. Mercer, I understand there may be confusion about yesterday's invoice. There is less confusion now. A pause. I hope your family isn't alarming you unnecessarily. Sometimes adult children come in during transitions and misunderstand the maintenance needs of an older home. Brian was standing close enough to hear. His jaw tightened. I raised one hand. My family is helping me read, I said. Graham gave a small laugh. Of course, but I do need to warn you that declining safety repairs may affect your service status. We cannot be liable if a senior client refuses recommended maintenance. There it was, not a threat exactly. Men like Graham rarely threaten when a suggestion will do. Threats leave teeth marks. Suggestions wear gloves. Put that in writing, I said. Excuse me, if my service status is affected, send me the reason in writing. Another pause. I would hate for this to become adversarial. Then send accurate records. He hung up first. Brian let out a breath. You were calm. I was not calm. You sounded calm. That is cheaper than being calm. That evening, Charlie and I fixed the garage light. It had flickered for months. I kept meaning to handle it, then not handling it, which is how a man discovers that procrastination and grief can share a toolbox. Charlie held the ladder. Did Grandma really label everything? Nearly. Why? I thought about Carol's hands on the binder, the way she pressed tape over notes, the way she prepared for futures she did not want because love, at its best, refuses to leave people helpless. Because she knew I was good at fixing things, I said, and she knew I was bad at asking where things were. Charlie considered that. Dad hates asking too. The ladder creaked under my shoe. Your dad has had a hard year. He thinks we don't know. I unscrewed the old fixture. Children always know more than father's hope and less than father's fear. Charlie was quiet. Then he said, he cries in the truck sometimes. I did not look down. Some truths should not be stared at directly when a boy first says them. Then we will give him work, I said. Work fixes crying? No, but it gives a man somewhere to stand while it passes. The neighborhood meeting happened on Thursday at the clubhouse. I chose the clubhouse because Graham liked private porches. Private porches let a man lower his voice and make shame feel personal. A clubhouse has bad fluorescent lights, folding chairs, and witnesses. It is harder to charm a spreadsheet when Mrs. Alvarez is sitting in the front row with her purse in her lap and judgment in both eyes. Graham arrived in a blazer. That told me he was frightened. Men wear blazers to neighborhood meetings when they want cotton and plastic chairs to understand hierarchy. He brought a regional supervisor named Paige, who introduced herself as client experience. She had a tablet, smooth hair, and the expression of a person prepared to be disappointed in everyone for their own good. Brian sat on my right. Jack was at the small projector cart. Charlie sat beside Hazel with Lucy asleep against his sneaker. Bonnie sat under my chair, which was where she preferred to practice law. Graham began well. I expected that. Hearthguard values our senior clients, he said. We understand that home maintenance can feel overwhelming, especially when family members become involved during stressful transitions. He looked at Brian. Brian did not move. Our records show recommended services, approved repairs, and deeply discounted labor. We are proud of the peace of mind we provide. Peace of mind. There are phrases that should be retired after enough damage. Page added, we never want a customer to feel pressured. Hazel made a sound that was not quite a cough. I stood slowly because standing quickly at 82 impresses nobody and risks more than pride. Mr. Voss, I said, did your company install a compressor relay module in my garage freezer on March 14? He smiled with sympathy. According to the service record, yes. Was it new? That is what the invoice reflects. And safe? Absolutely. I nodded to Charlie. His eyes widened. Then he stood, holding the printed photograph we had made at the drugstore because Carol had always said paper still mattered when people started denying electricity. This is the relay. In Grandpa's freezer, Charlie said. His voice shook, but not badly. The serial plate shows this part was manufactured in June. Jack clicked the remote. The photo appeared on the wall. For a moment nobody spoke. Then Dennis Pritchard leaned forward. June comes after March. Usually, I said. A few people laughed, not loudly. Enough. Graham's smile tightened. Parts photography can be misleading. That is why we brought the part. Charlie set the relay on the table. Brian looked at him like he was seeing his son from a new angle. Jack clicked again. The spreadsheet filled the screen. Invoice date, customer, claimed part, actual equipment, serial number, manufacture date, notes. It was not fancy. It did not need to be. Truth should wear work clothes when possible. Hazel's expansion tank, Dennis's shut-off valve, Mrs. Alvarez's garage sensor, my relay, my pressure switch, my capacitor that did not fit anything in the house except the shape of Graham's confidence. Page stopped looking disappointed and started looking employed. I pointed to the next line. You also billed me for a capacitor rated for 440 volts, I said. My unit uses a 370-volt run capacitor. I checked the nameplate in 2019 when the fan motor started drawing high amperage. Graham reached for his tablet. This is a hostile environment. No, Mrs. Alvarez said. It is a room with lights. That finished him more cleanly than anything I had prepared. Under my chair, Bonnie gave one sharp bark. Lucy lifted her head from Charlie's shoe, looked at Graham, and put it back down as if the matter had been settled. Brian stood then. I had not asked him to. My father is not confused, he said. His voice was even, stronger than I had heard it in months. He is the reason I know how to check a breaker before touching a wire. He is the reason my sons know how to label evidence instead of yelling on the internet. You did not pick a helpless old man. You picked a patient one. I looked at my son. There are repairs you do not hear happening until the machine runs smooth. Graham's face changed. The warmth left it. You people have no idea how exposed you are without our service, he said. There it was. The mask on the floor. Hazel lifted her envelope. Then, I suppose we will be exposed together. By the following Monday, 23 households had canceled Hearthguard in writing. 7 filed complaints with the state consumer office. 3 sent documents to the county prosecutor. Page sent an email full of regret, investigation, and values. It did not include a refund. Not yet. Paperwork is a slow animal, but it moves if enough people pull in the same direction. At home, Brian and Jack built a folder system on my laptop. Jack named one file, Hearthguard Master Evidence, all capital letters. Subtle, I said. Searchable, he said. Charlie and I finished the garage light. When it came on without flickering, he grinned like we had restored power to a city. Brian watched from the doorway. I should have noticed, he said. You were surviving. So were you. I wiped my hands on a rag. Yes. That was all. Sometimes men do better with small honest words than large speeches. He looked toward the kitchen, where Jack was explaining to Bonnie why dogs were not allowed near laptops. "I hated moving back here," Brian said. "I know. Not because of you. I know that too. I felt like I was failing in front of my boys. I folded the rag once, then again. Brian, a house is not only where people go when they are winning." He looked at me. "Sometimes it is where they go to stop losing alone." His eyes filled before he could turn away. I let him turn. Mercy is sometimes giving a man the dignity of not watching him receive it. That evening, we ate at the kitchen table, all four of us. Bonnie under Jack's chair because he had become careless with toast. Lucy beside Charlie because loyalty, once awarded, should not be disturbed. After supper, Jack slid the yellow legal pad toward me. "Can I keep doing the numbers?" "For Hearthguard. For the house, bills, stuff. Not because you can't," he added quickly. I waited. He swallowed. "Because I think I am good at it." I thought of Carol's binder, her tape, her notes, her refusal to let love remain only a feeling when records were needed. "Then we will do it together," I said. Charlie looked up. "Can I keep doing garage stuff?" "Garage stuff is a broad technical field. The broadest." "Saturday morning," I said. "We start with the hinge on the side gate." Brian leaned back in Carol's chair. For the first time since he arrived, he looked tired without looking ashamed. Later, after the boys had gone upstairs and Brian had taken the dogs out because he said I had done enough for one day, I stood in the hallway beside Carol's photograph. The house was not quiet anymore. There was a shower running upstairs, a drawer closing. Brian telling Bonnie she could not fight a June bug through the screen door. Lucy's tags chiming against her bowl. I touched Carol's frame. "You were right about the serial numbers," I said. Her smile stayed where it was, in the garden, under the sun. "You were right about the house, too." For years I had thought I was protecting this place because it held the life we built. But a house is not protected by keeping it unchanged. It is protected by letting the right people need it. Graham Voss thought he had found an old man too lonely to question a bill. He didn't understand loneliness. Loneliness is not weakness. It is an empty room waiting to learn whether the door still opens. Mine did. My son walked through it, carrying shame he did not know where to put. My grandsons came through it with boxes, anger, appetite, and questions. Bonnie and Lucy inspected them and, after proper deliberation, allowed the arrangement to continue. We helped each other. That sounds small. It is not. Some repairs require a wrench. Some require a spreadsheet. Some require a boy holding a flashlight, a father admitting he is tired, and an old man learning that being helped is not the opposite of being strong. It is one of the ways a family becomes useful again.